We acknowledge the traditional custodians of Canberra, the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, their elders past and present, and we will tread carefully on their sacred ground. We acknowledge the members of the Tongan royal family currently residing here in Canberra, the leaders of this country, and representatives of all Pacific Island nations here. Welcome to everyone. We welcome you to this program. This is the multimedia program known as Storytelling. My name is Luciane Lafitani, and on this rather cool autumn day in Canberra, Friday the 23rd of April, 2021, this program brings people from all communities and cultures from all over the world to tell you their story. This morning, or this afternoon, we have a very special storyteller. He happens to be the Lo'au University Chancellor, Professor Inoke Hu'akau. Most of you know Professor Hu'akau from some of his various work backgrounds, his community leadership, etc. And today, hopefully, we will find out a little bit more about him. And straight after this program, he will stay on and joining Professor Lafitani on the program Lo'au and Other World Scholars. So don't tune out, because there's a lot on from the Lo'au Media program this afternoon. So, without further ado, let's start with the storytelling. Chancellor Professor Hu'akau, welcome to the program this afternoon. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So I guess storytelling, there's always a beginning to a story. And I was wondering, Professor Hu'akau, whether we can begin from your beginning. And I was thinking of, I guess everyone would know that your beginning was in Tonga. Am I right?
Education in Tonga at that time was a very closed system. You have only one high school there that can take New Zealand school certificate.
Okay.
At that time. And the rest of the college was trained under the Tongan curriculum, which you have the lower and higher leaving certificate, right? So a lot of people is being put under the local curriculum system, a lot of it, of the students.
Yes.
Why I say it was closed, because the passageway to New Zealand and overseas are very narrow indeed at that time.
Yes.
So you have the Tonga High School, but when Atanisi was brought up, was established in 1966 actually, it comes with 1966, 1968. Atanisi started to connect to New South Wales system of education.
Okay. And
that's the first opening in Tonga. Right? I know that Tupo High School was established close to that time, taking the Victoria syllabus. And but they have a different system. But as far as school certificate and higher school certificate, it was the link with New South Wales system of education, Atanisi link to that. That opens up the
Right.
opportunities for other students who are not in Tonga High School
Yes. Yes.
uh, to have a venue, educational venue, which directed overseas.
Okay.
And that was at that time. Um, but now we have a lot of tertiary level education
Of course.
as well as high school.
Of course. Of course.
But the first task of opening up the education system in Tonga to the link overseas was done by Futa when he established Rationality. And established the link to the New South Wales system of education.
So I guess the opening of Atenisi was extremely important, because that was the opening, that was the pathway for, as you said, students other than Tonga High School students. Because I think, am I right to say, Inoke, that the Tonga High School students, their pathway was basically directed at New Zealand?
Yes.
Yes.
That education system is directed linked to the New Zealand curriculum, but Australia is quite different. It's a bit different
Yes.
because each of the state has their own.
Right.
Right, and I know that there's a real level at that time when the Western Church linked to Victoria, it's a different system.
I see.
And we link to New South Wales it is a different system at that time. But New South Wales is like New Zealand in a way that the certificate they have is the school certificate and university entrance certificate. Called in Australia, in New South Wales, higher school certificate. But
So
that gave the opportunity for a lot of students to break away from our local content as far as curriculum and examination is concerned, to start to look overseas for their education.
So, Inoke, was this Professor Futahelu, was this his plan? Or did it just happen that when he started the school, that these opportunities opened up? Or did he open the school with the hope that it will open up another pathway overseas for students?
Yes, it is Professor Futahelu establishing of Atenisi, and it's a program that opens that. Right? But first, we decide taking the school certificate. We aspire in Atenisi because to set up a university, we have to get some tertiary level student to pass the higher school certificate. Right?
Yes, yes.
When we reach that stage, the higher school certificate, then Atenisi has the legitimacy to establish a university, which is the idea all along. Right? And as soon as we reached that in 1970, we set up a curriculum which is very much Tongan oriented. And I still think that was a beautiful curriculum. And I believe in some ways that if we should have stayed in that curriculum and pursue it, it would be very much different. Tonga would be very much different educationally.
Professor, what was so unique about this curriculum? As you're saying that it...
The original Atenisi curriculum was applied from 1970 to 1973.
Right.
The core of the curriculum is that we have philosophy, we have logic, we have mathematics, and we have ethnoscience, which include all the aspect of Tongan culture and studies. And we have, I think, physics. That was the original curriculum. But, but the second idea of it, when people from overseas, like professors, educators, started to look at Atenisi, they were willing to help, and a lot of them came to Tonga at that time to help. We have engineer from Lockheed company in the United States that was in the, we have people from everywhere that can come and assist, and they believe that Atenisi could do all right. And what the main attraction is that the independence in academic.
Okay.
So they have a chance to recreate something they believe in as far as education is concerned.
Right.
But at the same time, they put in the idea that Atenisi has to be recognized by the overseas institution.
Like universities overseas.
That when we formally established it in university in 1975, we changed the original curriculum of Atenisi to subjects in order to adapt to the needs of overseas universities.
I see.
Mainly the United States, Australia, and New Zealand. Right? And when we graduate after the Associate of Science, Associate of Art, we then apply to other overseas universities to continue there. Later, Atenisi established its own bachelor and MA level program, but close to the end of its short life in education.
Its short, wonderful life, yes. So with the once it was established, and once the overseas universities agreed that you're good enough as students to come across and study with us, is that when it changed, the curriculum changed, or it was just changed in 75 and then carried on?
The new curriculum for the university was designed to be in par with the overseas institution.
Yes.
Yeah. And like mathematics and different type of sciences that study there, but we have Tongans also, Tongan study also add on to that curriculum.
Okay. All right.
Which is a study of Tongan culture in different art, but it has been compartmentalized. That program to astronomy, to anthropological interest, to a different sort of things, like other sciences that we have, like agriculture, building, architecture, something like that. Nearly all aspects of our tradition and our civilization in Tonga was implemented to include in this new curriculum for the university.
Okay. So can I go back to when you were studying in Atenisi and you attained your bachelor of whatever it was? Did you leave Tonga and go to, was it Australia or New Zealand?
New Zealand.
All right.
I was one of the first to, after we graduated, New Zealand accepted my application to
Mm,
continue for university. And they gave me about half of the credit that I need for a bachelor.
I see. Okay.
But there was one thing that happened. The way we conduct education and who to conduct education in Athens, it's a different mode. eh?
Mm,
We educate to understand, right? And to question a lot of things.
yes.
And that slightly affect when we come to overseas, when you come overseas,
Mm,
getting a degree is the last thing on our mind, right?
mm,
We, we still come with the general interest in searching for knowledge, um, whatever it is, for wisdom, for thinking, for criticizing. We came with that package,
mm.
which is not in line with most of the overseas institutions.
That's right. That's
Right?
right.
You overseas institution, you concentrate on getting your credits in order to get a bachelor, a degree, or something, in order to
That's
graduate.
right.
A different attitude about education. And it's like that we wander around the university searching for this, right? And sometimes,
Searching for someone to recognize you.
uh, and no, see. And sometimes when we approach our lecturers, they seem to run away from because they know there will be 100 questions that you want to ask about any subject, right? And things like that. Uh, but fortunately, it was me and Daniela Mao, I think. Lang Toto came later to Victoria University. But I was the first one to come into Auckland, right? And study there. But I went back to Tonga because my family can come to Auckland, come to New Zealand. I had to be there by myself for duration of study, but I have young family in Tonga that I very much need to be with me in New Zealand.
Yes. And back then, there was nothing about, there was not much support for students to be looked after with their scholarship to look after themselves and their families. That was a little bit of an unknown, wasn't it? For a scholarship to cover a
Yes,
whole family.
yes. The one thing, Luciane, is that when we um, come to the university, first thing is that degree is a little bit away from our mind. What we want is to pursue something, to know something, right? Whether whatever you study, we come with a hunger for knowledge that it's very hard to find in universities at the time.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
and and beside that, uh, I was introduced to philosophy and logic quite early by the first original curriculum in Athens.
Yes.
I got attracted to those subjects, but I realized when I come overseas that you like mathematics as well. We end up liking everything. That's the problem, right? Liking everything, but then you are prevented from taking that further, from taking that course further by the program of each degree, which I find it very new to the way we were brought up in education.
Yes.
But people later that come from Adenisi got adapted to it.
Yes.
And the opportunity at that time, because USP was being established,
Right.
right? And all the Pacific Island, including Tonga, was working toward support USP with all of their students.
Okay.
And so only private students come to New Zealand.
I see.
But the fortunate thing in New Zealand, the aid package by New Zealand to Tonga,
Yes.
right? Yeah, include tertiary needs of the Pacific Island students.
Okay. All right.
At that time, they allow us, they take the money that Tonga need for education, first from their aid program, right? So we were able to study free of charge.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, the government has paid for it.
All right.
And we were not burdened with school, with
School
education
fees.
levy at that time. So that was a very, very fortunate thing.
Yes.
It comes on, it changed in 1990s, I think, when each of the Pacific Island nations need the New Zealand aid to come in total to them.
Okay.
And then from them, it's up to them to see what their need is for education.
I see.
Not like before,
Yes.
where the need of education for the tertiary level students from the Pacific were taken out of the grant before they give it to Tonga, to Samoa,
Yes.
but later they want to get the full amount, and then together with that full amount, the responsibility to take care of their own education, right?
Inoke, when the assessment process went from New Zealand to the Tongan government, did you observe big changes to do with the help that was going to the students?
That's the opportunity that Atenisi has.
I see.
Because all government scholarship goes to USP,
Okay.
and we have a little opportunity to use the way that they do that Australia and New Zealand do their grant at that time to pursue to bring New Zealand and Australia in line, right?
Okay.
And for some years, Atenisi graduate dominate the education in Australia and in New Zealand
Yes.
because of that opportunity,
Yes.
right? And it helps. Here helps very, very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, given, you said you had to go back because you had a young family. When did you return to finish off your, because you did your master's in New Zealand?
No,
You finished
I did all my graduate program here in
Okay.
Australia.
In
I
Australia.
went back to
I
Tonga,
see. Yes.
and then I bring my family here to Australia,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yes.
And continue my studies.
And that was at
uh,
Sydney University?
I came first to Wollongong.
Wollongong. All
It
right.
was a newly established
Yes.
university at that time, and when I came there, we have they have philosophy there also.
Okay.
They have logic, but
Mm.
they recommended for me to move to Sydney.
All
Right?
right.
My way of thinking and things like that, I would be better suited in Sydney.
Okay. Yes.
Uh, Although they offer me a lot of opportunities, but I think that I take their advice and I move to Sydney.
Right.
But
And
at
that's
that time, yeah, there is a lot of Atenisi graduates on other universities changed the aid package
yes.
to the island. A lot of our students have already here,
Mm. Mm.
including Siua, Okusi, everybody.
So that change of the program really, really helped. That was a good thing. That was a very positive thing for Tonga, and especially for Atenisi students. Mm.
Yeah, that was quite opportunistic,
Mm.
Luciana. That's
Mm.
the opportunity we have, and the impact of that opportunity given to the other student can still be felt up to now
Absolutely.
in the
Absolutely.
education. And unfortunately, Atenisi recently was very close to being closed down. I don't know what happened to it now,
Mm.
but that is a different case, Luciane, to
Mm.
our discussion. But the way my education is, I can say, very, very Atenisi. Huh?
Mm.
And my
Mm.
education, because big questions from my family, even my children, what are you educating for? Right?
Why for? What's the
and
reason?
and I realized after I come to Sydney that the interest that I have in education is a lifetime pursuit of knowledge. Right?
Yes.
And job can come on the side, but
That's
that
right.
is not the main thing. That,
Mm.
but fortunately, um, I get jobs, Luciane, I say fairly good job
Yes.
because I have a different way of thinking, a different, my educational background, major in philosophy and logic, sort of bring me no difficulty in finding a job. Right?
I think that was the best
Uh,
preparation for someone like you,
when
Inoke.
we were not educated to find a job,
Mm.
we were educated to create one.
Yes.
That's the difference. And when you educate yourself to create your own job, you can do it.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
Uh, I never study accounting. I have a bit of philosophical way of looking at law, looking at everything. But I never trained to manage a company, right?
Mm.
But it's not hard. You, a philosopher can walk in and sit down and see what's going on and can manage. Right? It's that kind of education, which is very fortunate. I was fortunate. I think when they nationalized the first associate directors for Peace Corps in Tonga, I get the job. Right? I apply for that job and get it. By that time, I got paid very well at the American scale in
American
Tonga.
dollars, of course.
And I am very fortunate in working simply because of the way I think. Right? And job comes in easily for me. And I believe that's the way you have to do the education. And education should be tailor-made. Every curriculum should be tailor-made to have that. And that is why we established Lo'au with you and the guys, because we find that with a bit of thinking, you can go a long way, whatever you know.
That's
Right?
right.
Whatever
right.
your profession is, but in every curriculum we take thinking for granted. Right? In Lo'au, it is a discipline to be studied.
Yes.
Right? In Lo'au. That is the core element of our curriculum in Lo'au, because we believe that we cannot take thinking for granted anymore.
That's right.
Our society is as complicated as anything, and we have to take thinking as a separate discipline.
Yes. That
Right?
was one
To
of
study.
my questions that I was going to pose with you a little bit later. But I was thinking as you were talking, you absolutely hit the nail on the head when you talked about your education was the greatest preparation ever for you to live your life and to look after your family and to find work or to create work, because you had that backing. You already had that foundation of a really good education.
Yes, and it can be done.
Yes.
And we have to broaden our curriculum in order to incorporate this, but it's very hard, right?
Yes.
And what started us on that line of thinking is that we have rationality as the defining character of a human being, right? Of Homo sapien.
Yes.
But you look at the curriculum out there, cannot find it. The closest thing to study of the rationality as we do at Luau is the University of Jerusalem. Right? But they amalgamate professors from different field of science, and they sit down and talk. Right? That's the way it is out there. And they sit down and discuss something. No one has set it up as a separate discipline. That is why we set up at Luau the School of Rational Studies.
Yes.
We put some traditional subjects into it, like philosophy, logic, and I head the department and see what deal with the ethnoscience side, and that is why we have that discipline there, School of Rational Studies. We perhaps, Luciane, I may claim that we are the first one to do it.
I think you can. I think you can
Yeah.
have that claim. I was just.
Because when we started at that time, you punched down Rational Studies, School of Rational Studies, Lo'au Boba,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But now it's Rational Studies everywhere, right? But they still come as a program, not as a discipline,
Yes.
as we do it in the Lo'au. But I think we will pursue that in accord with our curriculum in the future.
Your idea, or because I remember when you were talking about the decision to have the philosophy of Lo'au University as education for thinking, and of course everyone else agreed that that was a really good philosophy to have. Was your idea about having this as a philosophy for Lo'au, was that in your mind about preparing the students, because you were prepared on a very similar level, or preparing the students for the future?
Yes. That's we have to do that. Because although we talk about thinking, it's just pop up here and there, right? It's not being put as a discipline for something. And although we have something now called interdisciplinary in a lot of curriculum, but it is not enough. It is not enough. We have to put a lot of thinking about the sciences we study to know their relationship, right? Because every science in this world is related to one another. Whether you do physics, chemistry, mathematics, and so on, they are related. And you should see the system of education as they are related as one. They are interconnected, and we undermine their connectedness in every curriculum that we do. And the consequences, Luciana, is what we've seen today. Right? The global problem we face today is that because each of our sciences perceive itself on the basis of getting wealth and things like that, other than see whether we can, how does it benefit human being and in what way, and how does it benefit his environment, and in fact the whole world. Yeah, that's why we set up Luau for our students to think broadly. We talk environmental, something like that, but this is the core of the problem.
So
Because we have not connected biology to soil, to things. Study, there's a lot of separate sciences that we can combine in order for us to deal with our environmental problem and global problem.
So do you see, Professor, is there any other sort of preparation that we need for getting people ready for this world, for this, whatever's changing in the world today? Is there, apart from how Lo'au is doing it, is there other preparations that need to happen? And I'm thinking about Tonga here.
Yeah, yes. If you look at Tonga now, what's shown from there is a lot of uneducated decision, right? And this is if we are not smart enough to plant ourselves in this development in this world as the world it is now.
Yes.
We have a very bleak future in our country.
That's right.
Because we will allow people to, their needs will dominate everything. Right? And you have to be very smart in order to navigate your country through this global state of play that we are experiencing now.
When you say bleak, is there hope? Is there hope, Professor Hu'akau?
There is, but we don't have much time. We damage our thing is escalating in every way. Right? But there is a chance, like the chance to do it is like the smaller country like Tonga, like we can forge ourselves into some ways to strengthen our stand on what we believe in. Right? But the trouble, our education system is geared toward what they believe in we should follow. Right? It's not to create a niche for us in the world of today. It's to integrate us into what's going on.
So is that what you think? It's the education system that needs
Um,
overhauling first?
um, that's all right if they geared the national system toward getting jobs and things like that,
Yes.
and degree level, something like that. But the question that we have to ask, does it mean anything? What does it mean for us to say that we are the most highly trained nation
Yes.
in the Pacific?
Yes.
What does it mean? We have to answer that question, to look at our country and to look around what happened, where is our being educated? Where is our claim? Right? That is a lot of hard question to ask, Luciano.
Yes.
But there is quite an opportunity, like we set up Hu'akau for students if they come in, if they pursue that kind of education, there is a place for it, right? And and perhaps in the future more and more will see this as the way out. It's the only way to solve our problem that we face. Right? We have to know how to select the rubbish from the good quality thing to adopt for our country. Right? Because right now there are more rubbish than anything. And we have the technology. The most difficult thing is that we have the technology to spread it.
That's right. That's
And
yeah. It's a difficult
yeah, the
thing
job is
sorting out
getting harder.
rubbish. Yes.
Mm.
And I
The
know.
job is getting harder. Look
Yes.
at the bundle of rubbish that float around in the Pacific Ocean. Right?
Absolutely.
Miles, miles and miles
Yeah.
of this plastic rubbish float
Yeah.
around. What else is there? Is that only the physical rubbish we worry about, or the mental one, right? And on the or the educational one?
Yes.
People educate to get their job, and when you get a job, you sit there, right? And say that, oh, I like to benefit from what I've learned, right? Shouldn't be that way. What is your country benefit from what you are, right? From what you trained, what you were trained. If you come in as a trained government workers, what would be the benefit that your country will achieve from that? We have to ask that question.
Yes.
If not, people will concentrate on their own needs and leave the country linkers on the side.
I guess that problem of being individualistic and looking out for oneself instead of looking out at the community is quite a sad illness, that's hitting our country, and I guess not only our country in Tonga, but countries worldwide. What I'd like to ask you, because we're running out of time, Professor, but can I ask you, what are the other world issues, important world issues that occupy your mind nowadays? I know you're a thinker, and there's a lot of things that I've heard you talked about, all sorts of things. But today, what are the important world issues that occupy you?
Luciane, we can't talk about strengthening our culture, our tradition, without our language.
Yes.
We have to empower our language to to coincide with the time that we are in and the technological need that we need to empower our language now and then, right?
Yes.
And because our language, we can't educate the whole country, but our language can be applied to the whole country. That's how they learn, and it's really important. We are talking about education, something like that. But you hear most of our operation in Tonga are in English,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And when our government talk in English and our nation talk in Tongan, what do you expect from something like that? Right? We have to empower our language at the level it is counted, from law to a lot of program there. But if our official operate in English language and we still claim that we are Tongan, it's a contradiction. And so we have to talk, we have to write in Tongan. That is why we encouraged our students, the students who are doing thesis and research and something like that, to do it in Tongan.
In Tonga, that's right.
Right. To do it in Tongan, because we have to think clearly in Tongan in order for us
Yes.
to address it into the need to turn it into the English version.
Yes.
Is not a problem for us. We
And
have
you-
been with English as a second language for a long time, but I detested the idea that it will become our first.
That's right.
Right?
That's
It,
right.
I like it as a people, but I like it to stay as a second language
Yes.
for us in Tonga.
I think a lot of the young people in Tonga, it's regarded as their first language. And I was thinking, Professor Hu'akau, about countries like Kiribati who've lost their language. The United Nations have stepped in to grab that language and try and look after it, because it's gone. The people have
Well-
lost their language.
Unfortunately, Luciane, when you started to degrade your language and you lost it, your tradition will go away too,
That's
as
right.
consequences. We
Yes.
are not talking about, we do not talk about whaikawei koula and things like that, and undermine our language at the same time. It cannot be done. We have to strengthen our language and it will flow on to the traditional that we would like to keep, right? For example, we talk about tourism, right? Talk about tourism. There is no attraction to tourism. You have that, you have beautiful beach, you have... No. The attraction of tourism to any country is based on their people,
Yes.
how they behave. Right? We have something in our tradition called tarisola, and that's a very, very good value for us to look at in respect of our tourism. Right? If you come to a place in Tonga and you have no family, you have no one, people will take you up as part of their family.
That's right.
That's the concept. And we need to strengthen the concept in order to attract people to Tonga. People can come to Tonga if you started to kill your people in broad daylight, to do murder in broad daylight
That's right.
in the main street. Right? How many overseas Tongan that has been beaten to death in Tonga?
That's right.
These are the things for tourism, right? There's a lot of people talk, oh, we have international airport. Well, who would like to come, right? The biggest market for our tourism that we should concentrate on are the returning overseas Tongan, right? It's bigger than anything. They spend more, right? They go back twice a year, 3 times a year,
That's right. That's right.
right? And it's a bonus if you attract some other people coming. But our people should be our target for our tourism industry,
That's right.
right?
And
I
not
had
only not only that, Professor, but the overseas people with their remittances, all those millions of dollars that go back every year, that supports the economy
yeah,
in Tonga.
uh, we have in Tonga, but Tonga is still too minded of including us from overseas, right? The political climate there is a fear for the overseas Tongan to participate in Tonga, right? And something like that. But unless we find a way to integrate both in
Yes.
Tonga and overseas, that is our strength. And we can do wonderful things with that. And not only lip service thing, but
That's right.
we have to take it as part of our development. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the way, but we are talking about education, but it is the basis of most of the problem that the world has. Not only Tonga.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on that note, thank you so much, Professor Hu'akau, for joining us today. And this here is absolutely part one of our storytelling, because there's so much more that we can learn from you, and it's been thought-provoking, this conversation with you, and I thank you very much for spending your time with us. Thank you everyone who's watching, and I know you would have enjoyed the program just as much as I have. Please don't stay away too long. The professor is going to come back in a few minutes to join Professor Laftani in another program called Lo'au and Other Worldwide Scholars. So thank you and good afternoon. Malo.
Mahalo pito, Luciane.
Malo.
And I appreciate very much the work you do with Siwa on keeping us connected to